Hello, everyone. I'm Leilani Cawthon, the CEO and publisher at Learning Council News Media and Research. This event today is about the digital transition, and we're going to be talking to people in Southern California. So we have an event today and tomorrow, instead of being there live physically like we're going to be doing in some of the other states. But our first conversation today is going to be with Dr. Stacey Perez, who's with Classical Academy High School in Southern California. She's the principal there, and she's done some really innovative work. So first of all, I want to tell you, take a break here anytime, keep your browser tab open, come back for the event, ask questions, raise your hand anytime, or type it into chat or the questions panel. Doug or I will take a look and make sure that we're involving you because we really want dialogue. We want to thank ClassLink and VitalSource for sponsoring today, and they'll be part of the event to share us what's the latest from the commercial side and right after Stacey. And then we're going to dig into the leadership discussion. I'll present a lot of new data from the Learning Council research. All right, so this is the way the day is going to roll, in case you needed to know who's on deck when. And then first up, Dr. Stacey Perez. Stacey, do you want to share screen, or would you like me to take screen off? How do you want to roll?
You can take the screen off. That's fine.
Okay. So let's talk about really what's happening for you. What's changed? I know you grew a lot. Let's start there.
Yeah, we've grown. This is our 9th year. Started as a learning center for our more traditional high school. Wanted to provide some online options for students, and that exploded 9 years ago. We started with 100 students. We doubled every single year, split our campus into 2. So we're in North San Diego County, have one in Oceanside and one in Escondido. And fast forward through the pandemic, with the shutdown, we were very, very successful. We had the model from the get-go. And so the day they said, you're going home, we went, okay, see you tomorrow. We did a 2-week break, and then we came back. Just meeting the kids where they were, which we were doing in the classroom anyways. Our model is where the students don't have to come, but they choose to come. So we have about 80% of our students that come on campus by choice every day. Others that might stay home for whatever reason, whether they're traveling, they're musicians, they're actors and actresses, or they have health issues. And now that's been impacted even more with the anti-vaxxers. So students that cannot come on a campus if they have not been completely vaccinated from their childhood vaccinations. We're not even talking about COVID. So now this year we actually have expanded our program even more, where we do have a full virtual program. And so students can choose virtual, where they still have an educational specialist, they still have access to all their teachers. At this time, we are not rooming and Zooming. We did that when we started to come back at the end of last year, where teachers would be in their classroom. They would have some students, we had to do learning pods, so they could have up to 14 students in front of them, and they Zoomed at the same time. In that transition, my support team staff, so security, campus supervisor, my records people, my academic coaches who had been at home, how does their position continue? They became moderators. So they actually paired up with a teacher, helped service those students. So we always had 2 adults in the room and Zoom at a time. And now we have the virtual program. So we're supporting even more students through that. And that program is almost equal to our on-campus program as far as enrollment.
Okay, so let's talk about the model, because there's a lot of executives, a lot of administrators struggling with their model right now. Like their superintendents all spring and now events through the fall have talked about, I had to stand up a virtual program. In their minds, often that means 2 rails, like you're either a full-time physical or you're the virtual side. You're kind of a blend in the middle, but you still have classes and classrooms. So if you're doing a classroom activity, is that like an all-day thing? Are all the kids on their own pace everywhere? Or are they sort of still whole grouped by grade and age? How does this work?
We call them a workshop. So a workshop for English 1, which is 9th grade English. We've got the students at home and the students on campus with the same playlist. So they all have the same resources, whether that be a PDF, a recording, a video, a game. They'll have a playlist of approximately 8 items. Those 8 items all teach them the same objective. So they're self-directed in their learning already. That does take a lot of hand-holding at first until they get used to that model. From there, they need to take notes. We check their notes. We make sure that their parents are looking at their notes. They actually even have to sign them so that we understand how they're digesting the material and not just copying and pasting something. And then we teach them how to apply that through their cognitive skills. And then that gets applied to a project. The project is a little bit more self-paced. So we're all getting to the same finish line, but we've got 9 weeks that it can look very different for every different student, which means if a student's only coming on campus 1 day a week, they're coming when they need that instruction or support. There is a lot of flip teaching. So when you're in the classroom, you're collaborating with students, you're being put into groups. The teachers can all look at the platforms and divide up into 3 different distinct groups, or a student could go off into self-directed learning area quietly and put headphones on and work all by themselves. So they're really asking for what they need, and then we're using our data to drive that.
Okay, so when I visualize this, I'm visualizing, you have all your resources and sort of a check sheet, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Are any of those steps necessarily lectures?
Yeah, and through the pandemic, the teachers did a lot of lectures, but the lectures are really limited. We don't ever lecture more than 10 minutes.
Okay.
Math is a lot more, I guess, concept driven. So there is more lecturing in that aspect. But if a student already has mastered something, they can move on to the next thing and not listen to the lecture. That's always available.
Well, right there is the biggest divergence model-wise that the traditional public education system doesn't quite think with yet. They're thinking with, I divide up kids in the building by grades, and then I divide them into classrooms. And most of what the teacher will be doing is, if not lecture, leading instruction during the course of the hour or the whole day, right? And so the model that you're talking about is teacher is mostly the guide, punctuating instruction occasionally with a smaller whole group.
Right. And then filling in those gaps. We have a lot of gaps in learning, and math is probably the best example that a city in North County, I won't mention any names, decided during the pandemic that math was not important. So we can't teach math concepts virtually. We really need to have manipulatives and be in person. And those students now have come to us missing an entire year of math. However, they're still in their current grade. So a current 9th grader in Math 1 is missing a lot of Math 8 concepts. So we're filling in those gaps as we find them through STAR Renaissance testing, through different assessments, making sure that they have the baseline of what they need to move forward.
Okay, so it's really, when you really think about it, it is that model where you sort of laid every brick in a row and you can see which bricks are missing, but it's not necessarily we're all together all the time. It's this new disaggregated model of the old classroom, and the teacher's role is now that not as much lecture all the time, but the knowledge being purveyed is in all of these resources, and the teacher's personalizing for every student, and sometimes small and whole grouping.
Right. And then, like I said, they do have those videos that they created in the past year that they are able to put onto the platform and tell the students, oh, here's what you need today. Go put your headphones on, take a look at that video, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a very different model. And I'm going to get to comments that are being made right now. But the thing that we're hearing a lot is a lot of public education is teacher-centric, and like the teacher is the most important thing in the known universe, which is great. It's true. But that often means for them, especially during the pandemic, that when they quickly shifted to digital, every teacher was on their own and they were scrambling. They might be scrambling the hour before the lesson they're supposed to teach to try to get materials to teach it. So you're living in a model where a huge portion of what is being taught, the knowledge being purveyed, is extant. It's sitting there, being paced. So it's a pre-built model.
Mhm.
Am I right? Yeah. That's very, very different than most schools operate. They operate from every teacher on their own. So you have the latitude as an individual teacher to just, for lack of a better way to say it, fly by the seat of your pants day to day or week to week. And maybe that's good in some instances because like there's a new standard and now you got to teach this week and we don't know what we're doing, All right. So let's go to chat. I'm going to open my chat window here. Make sure I can see it. Okay. Ellen Palmer. Let's have Ellen unmuted. I don't know. I think Doug can unmute her. Hi, Ellen.
Hi, Leilani.
Hi. So good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Yeah. So you asked the question, does Dr. Perez use teacher-created materials and projects, or are they buying? Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just curious. You talk about the playlists that are shared. For example, you gave like an English 1 class. The ninth graders all shared the same playlist, and then they take those activities, complete them, and then apply their learning to a project. So I was just wondering, have you given your teachers time to develop this playlist, or are you guys working with a vendor to kind of create the playlists?
Great
And
question.
yeah.
We're actually a summit learning school. So we are funded, our curriculum is funded through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. So we don't buy any curriculum. We do have some independent study curriculum for the families that choose to do full homeschool. However, and the projects are built in, so everything's there, and this is shared across the United States. It's really powerful for us to have. We also use Schoology because we do have some teacher created, this is my best project and I want to keep that. So we'll put those into Schoology for the students to use. But there are some teacher created materials. Some teachers came to us with some incredible, powerful material. The only thing we really buy is usually English books. And then all of our AP materials. We are a college prep school. So if a student's taking an AP class, they would have a textbook for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else with any questions, get it in chat, raise your hand kind of a thing. Glad to have you, make conversation with Dr. Perez. So the other question then is, what about all the logistics? So I can imagine logistics are a nightmare because when you're thinking with different kids at different points, that's hard. I mean, the reason we had whole group learning forever and ever and ever and ever and ever is because then you're thinking with, I got to keep everybody together. Some of them might fail because I don't have the time to put attention on everybody, right? That was the reality. But now logistics is where it gets really hairy.
It's actually been an incredible evolution of our existing students stepping up. Like they have that self-directed learning process and they understand it. They've mastered the content. And we have this huge influx of students that want to be interns and helpers and are helping the teachers, which has just been amazing. Students helping students, what a concept, right? But our juniors and seniors don't generally care to come on campus. They only have a few classes. They're taking community college classes. They've got jobs, they've got a driver's license. But this year, because they want to be back in person and they want to have that social aspect, they're volunteering in our classrooms, and that's really helping support what our teachers are doing.
Okay.
But the logistics, we had plan A when we shut down, and then plan B and plan C. And I think right now I'm on plan M. And then I have to revert back. So like I had mentioned the learning pods, that was great. Those students that wanted to come on campus, but what do you do about those that can't or won't? So we just have constantly shifted that. My attendance is so high right now that everyone just wants to be back. So much so that we have put a 3,600 square foot tent outside so that we have more outdoor area so that marching band doesn't have to stop during a shutdown. Choir can continue. Musical theater is outside. So we're working with what we have, and we just continue to evolve that based on what we need.
Okay, good. All right. I think there's a comment or question from Chris Dickinson. Gonna make sure you're unmuted, allowed to talk. Chris, go ahead. You have to unmute. Chris, are you there? Has to unmute.
Okay. Well, I can see in the chat, he asked what the teacher-student ratio is.
Okay.
For our on-campus students, it's 1 to 25, and for our virtual students, it's 1 to 40.
Okay, and then the distinguishing point is that the virtual is much more student agency self-paced. And the teachers
Correct.
are watching who's behind and doing one-to-one catch-up kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. And then there was another chat question from Ellen. Hi, Ellen, again. Vetting the teacher-created projects and materials. Do you have a process?
It depends if they're adopting one that's already in the Summit Learning platform. It's been vetted and it's standards aligned and grade level. That's already there. If it's one that the teacher is creating, they're aligning it to cognitive skills, and there's 36 cognitive skills that we use. We ask that they align that to only 1 or 2 using the content that they learn through their playlist. So it's tricky. But once you get a system and you have a system, it's like a red, yellow, green light system. Students aren't getting grades until that project is actually complete. And that project might have 7 checkpoints leading up to the completion of that project. So our hope is that that's mastery at that time, because they'll get to the first checkpoint. And if they get a yellow, that means, nope, we need to go back and fix that. Maybe you need another resource. Maybe you need to use a different grammar depending on what that cognitive skill is. And the cognitive skills, yeah, they're actually from Stanford University. So I can get Leilani that document and she can share it.
Oh, I was just going to unmute Ellen and have her ask that question. Ellen, anything else about the cognitive skills question?
No, I just would like to reference them. So
Yeah,
I get to study them, and definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of research behind it. So it is fascinating to study and changing our thinking of, I want a student to master this subject area to, I want a student to learn and understand a cognitive skill, such as citing relevant sources. We know that as our reference page. We grew up with that. But in all areas cross-curricular, then they're using that cognitive skill in every subject because they need to know how to cite relevant sources. So that would look different for math, but it's still the same cognitive skill that once they start to master those skills, and we see that in our upperclassmen a lot, developmentally, they grow with those. And our students, I had one this morning, he was just saying, this school is so amazing. I know I'm ready for college. I'm not afraid to go to college because I know I have the skills that I need in any subject area. So yeah, definitely I'll get you the cognitive skills and you can study up on those, but there's a lot of research behind those.
Yeah, I love what you just said. And just the other day, we had a superintendent on from North Carolina, and we were talking to him and about student agency. And what you're talking about is you've been making students aware of what they need to have, putting on their suit of armor for the future, so to speak, and involving them in that. So they feel like, okay, I can check that one off. I can give myself a gold star for the day. That doesn't always happen in the traditional public where it's just like, did you pass the test or not? You know, some IEPs do that, you know, your learning education plan, your IEP, where it tells you your goal. But I want to go back to this other part, which is the way that you're purveying a course or a workshop, as you called it. Maybe sometimes it is that step-by-step, read this, watch this, do this, take this test, interact with the teacher at this point. Is it sometimes more of a discovery model where it's like, here's the thesis of what you have to learn, and then here's everything. And then you as the student are sort of on a discovery journey, which is part of the project of it all, and then providing your proof to the thesis, or is that kind of like it?
Yeah, absolutely. So our teachers actually create a final product, which would be their project, called the final product. before they even teach it. So they go in, they create their own final product and show it to the students. This is what my final product would look like to, I'll go back to site relevant sources, and maybe there's a public speaking component to it. Our students don't know they're public speaking, which is fascinating. They're presenting and they're just presenting their work and they understand their work. So it's fascinating to watch. They own it. They live it. It's very passion based. So they're picking their own topics based on what the project overview is. So our teachers are actually showing them, this is what it looks like. And then Leilani, you're exactly right. They have all the pieces, all the checkpoints. We put due dates on them, but they're not hard due dates. This is when you should have this done to get to this finish line. And then we talk about procrastination every single day. So I have a lot of data at my fingertips, and I'll see a student in the hallway and I'm like, hey, we're going to go do a content assessment today. They're like, I know, but we all have that information. So the data is so important for the entire team and those logistics. How do you get students to the finish line? And this is a true personalized learning program, and every student has a different schedule. They have some come on campus for an hour, some are here for 8 hours, some don't come at all. And it's just, how do you mix that up? It would be very frustrating for the teachers not to have a driving force of data behind them to understand where the students are at and where they need to go.
Okay, so now let's go back to the logistics of all that, because this is really a critical shift, right? If everybody's on their own path and you have classrooms with teachers in them, do they sort of float into the class in and out like as needed? Or sometimes is there a specific scheduled thing that they're supposed to be in, or schedule wise, how does that sort of look?
There's 6 class periods.
Okay.
If you were a parent and you're coming to me and you're enrolling your student, the first thing we do is, what time do you want your student to be on campus? Oh, well, my student's a dancer, and so she needs to be done at noon. Okay, well, then we're going to build these classes in the morning, the workshops, that your student needs the most support in. Most likely they're going to do math, English, and history, or a science in the morning. And then we look at their strengths, and those could be more independent classes. So like I said, everybody has a different schedule. Those that are here all day can have up to 5 classes. Our 6 classes18 study PE. So that's not actually a class. When they're not in their workshop, which is a class they're in for 60 minutes, there's an area kind of like a study hall. It's our self-directed learning center. And that's where students go to be more self-directed, to set their goals, which we require they do every week. They also, a really, really important part of our program is that they have a mentor, and they meet with that mentor once a week for at least 10 minutes. A lot of times that takes longer than 10 minutes because we're not talking about academics. We're talking about, how are you?
Yeah.
What's going on at home? How was your soccer game? How's your dog? And they follow that mentor for 4 years. We're also using the Along app now, which is a 1-minute video that gets sent to the students each week, and they can choose how they want to respond to that. And so that's kind of our attendance tracker of, oh, that student hasn't responded to me in a couple of weeks. I need to find out what's going on and follow up with them. And the students really appreciate that. I have an adult watching out for me. We're not reprimanding them. We're not penalizing them. We're like, I really care about you. And I think that's where the culture of our school has really come together, that we care about every student and we don't want them to fall through the cracks. That doesn't mean they're going to be a straight A student, where our academics are high, but we're here to support you. And once you get a student in that frame of mind, now you're ready to learn. So now that we've had this conversation, you go to class and I'm going to give you a gold star later because we're going to see what you did. And we believe in them, and we know we have the pieces to support that, which is why we can't go over the 1:25 ratio, just because we need so much time in our day for that mentoring piece as well.
Yeah, a lot to that. I can, Doug, can you unmute Ellen? Because Ellen's got a list of questions here I want her to ask. But I want to say that I would love to get sort of a template, if you operate with one, on how your schedule works, like how you do your 6 periods, and then what are the mutations. That would be awesome. Because
it takes 2 people 6 months to get students into classes. It's really a huge matrix. I do the master schedule that changes each year just based on where our students are. We might have an AP music class this year that we won't have the need for next year. So we switch things around. We also have our CTE classes. So I don't know how to show what it is, but it starts with the master schedule and then the student letting us know when they're going to be on campus, and then they're in 3-day workshops. So the classes that they attend are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay. Fascinating. My mind is boggled. Awesome. Okay, Ellen.
Thank you. Thank you. So as you were talking, just a couple questions that kind of arose. The first, you mentioned an app that you're using to track your students. What was that called again?
It's called Along, ALONG.
Okay.
And you can sign up on their website. That's also funded by the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative.
Okay.
And it just, you connect your students, you send them an invitation.
Mhm.
And once a week, mine was Friday at 8 a.m. I would go in and there's a research-based questions in there. So it might be a question like, where did your name come from? And then I would answer it. I would say, well, my name came from, my dad and this country. And anyways, my 1-minute video then would go to those students. And I didn't think it was that important when I started. I piloted the program last year and was able to give them a lot of feedback until the students started saying, I wait for Friday morning at 8 o'clock to see my principal and to have a conversation with her. And I get to write back to my principal, like, who does that? It was so important during the shutdown. And now seeing students face to face, I'm like, you're taller than I thought because I never saw you before. But I feel like I know them and I know the students, and the teachers have that same relationship. So yeah, we use the Along app as well as the face-to-face mentoring.
So I also had a question in terms of like tracking students' mastery on the projects and on the cognitive skills. Are you using a SIS that tracks kind of where students are, or did you guys build something in-house?
We do have a SIS, but that's just where the final grades get put. The Summit Learning Platform actually tracks that for us. And when the project is done is when that grade gets assigned. We have one rubric for all cognitive skills. So they're all broken down, starting from a 4th grade level all the way up to college ready. So it starts at 0 and goes all the way to 8. Our graduating seniors should be at a 6. So those overachievers, they can get all the way to the 8, but there's one rubric that's used so everybody's speaking the same language, the same vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. And then the last question I had is, in a high school level course, how many projects would a student participate in in a single semester?
It's 2 to 3. So depending usually we do a smaller project at the very beginning because we have to collect work samples. And so that's our onboarding, is to get them into that and to get a grade. So just imagine that all students in their brain, they start with an A. Like, you have an A from day one, although that grade's not going to be populated until you're done with that project. And then those 2 to 3 different projects are all focused on different cognitive skills. So there's not an averaging of the grade. If a student mastered it, they mastered it. It doesn't go into another subject area, but then they're going to work on another cognitive skill. So usually they're working on about 5 cognitive skills each semester.
This was delightful. Anything else? We have like a minute and a half. Anything else we need to know about the difference with your environment than others?
If I open my door right now, which is right over here,
Yeah.
You would see 300 teenagers out there laughing. They're smiling. They're happy. They have their masks on. It looks very traditional on the outside and so very non-traditional on the inside, because we're really meeting students where they're at. And I would encourage everyone, it's hard. It's hard work. Teaching is hard. Education is hard right now. But when you do what's right for the students and we take the adults out of it, it's not what I know or what I believe. Every day I have to wake up and tell myself again, am I doing what's right for students today? And I really believe a personalized learning program is doing that.
Awesome. So proud of you. Thank you so much for your work. Okay.